Hello. Oh, it is working. Oh, it's on from the left channel. Hello. Now it should work. I was asking myself, what was actually going on? Why is that just the left channel working now? Both channels are working. It's because I just forgot to put the left, to pan the channel on stereo mode instead of going to mono. We call glitches here. But anyways, thanks for tuning in. Max here. So we are in Nanton. I'm just going to show you a picture of the room. There it is. Look at this. Isn't that amazing to see the level of engagement here? That's awesome. Look at this. We had some people on the back, and that's going to be good. So they just called a 2-minute warning, so they should be able to start soon. You ready, Sandy?
Okay. Good evening, Nanton. Thank you for coming. How many of you are here tonight at an event like this for the very first time? Good. There's quite a few of you. Welcome. Just a question. We put out a lot of flyers in this area. How many of you have received a flyer in the mail that would telling you about tonight's event? Well, that's interesting. All right. Okay, so Max already let you know where the bathrooms are, where the exits are. If you haven't been to the merchandise tables, please have a look at that. There's also a sign-up table at the back where the kitchen counter is there, and we'd love for you to sign up. Let us know where you're from, and if you'd like us to send you notification when we're back in this area, you can leave either a phone number or an email address or both, and we will contact you. If you would like to volunteer when we get back into your area, please just tick off the last column where it says yes or no, and we would really appreciate your help. There are trifold brochures at the sign-up table in the back, filled with information. Please take at least one of each. And there's free flags, little mini flags. Take at least one each of the brochures and more if you'd like. Oh, good. And more if you'd like to give out to friends, family, neighbors. We also have lawn signs at the back. Cory has some. There's Let's Talk Alberta signs there, and I think there might be some Jason Leving signs as well. I believe they're all by donation. So we would like to welcome you tonight to an informational event sponsored by Let's Talk Alberta. We are not a TPA, we are an educational society. And so the goal, the aim of tonight is to do just what the name says, Let's Talk. These events offer an opportunity for people like you and me to come together, no matter what side we stand on the issues, and to have a safe place to come discuss, share our opinions, concerns, ask questions, but do it in a respectful manner. And I think you'll find, and we have found, that you will agree a lot more on things than you disagree. The fact is, too, that we're not only interested in presenting to you and speaking to you, but what we're here for is we want you to speak to us so that we are actually having a conversation. Tonight we're going to give you that opportunity. After our speakers, we'll have a short intermission, and then we will have a Q&A. We'll have a mic brought up, and you'll be able to come to the mic, ask your questions. If someone has a question and they feel uncomfortable about doing that, please come and see me during the intermission, and I'll ask it for you. As a society, we are fully dependent on you for our financial support. We don't have big union donors. We don't have government funds or anything like that. And everything that we take in just helps us to go to the next town and the next event. It also helps us do the printing, which is very expensive, and the mailings. No one here gets paid, so just so you know, our speakers, we try to give them gas money, we pay for the event, the venues, the rentals, we print material. So know that whatever you do give to us, we appreciate it a lot, and it is, it's taken very seriously because we want to make the most of it and get the information out so that we can have a free and prosperous Alberta. Tonight we have 3 speakers. They will give their presentation and we'll have a short break and then we'll come back for the Q&A. We usually, traditionally, we open in prayer, and I haven't asked Ben, but I will now. The 3 pillars are faith, family, and freedom. So I'll ask Ben if he wouldn't mind opening this meeting in prayer.
That's not a problem. That's a privilege. Father, we are so thankful for life. We are so thankful for this land that we've been given, this ability to work and exist and thrive and build. And Lord, we're really concerned about how it's being taken away from us. So Father, we give this evening to you, and we ask you to give
Ben's going to be our first speaker tonight. And what do you say about Ben? There's an awful lot to say. He's a very talented person, very humble person as well.
I'm quite proud of that.
Yes. There you go. I didn't have that written, though. Yeah, Ben is a musician. He's a singer-songwriter. He's a cartoonist. He's a writer, and he is a talented creator of greeting cards. If you go to their table in the back, they have decks of playing cards, and you'll get to see a lot of his artwork on that. But as I introduce him, it's not all what he does that impresses me. It's who he is. And so it's my privilege to have Mr. Ben Crane come and be our first speaker.
Well, I appreciate that a whole bunch. How are you this fine evening? You're not outside getting soaked, right? Oh, man, where are these fires coming from? I have no idea, but... oh, there we go. There we go. People ask me why I'm doing this. Why am I not just out there entertaining and doing what I normally do? And it's very simple to me. Very simple answer is that I want to protect the roots that I have grown up with and the things that have, the ethics that have been a part of what has made me the way I am and my family. And I want to protect this for my kids and my grandkids. I got 2 grandkids, and the other day, my oldest one is 6, and he says, "Where are you going, Bumpa?" I said, "I'm going to go to a meeting." And he says, "Oh, are you going to one of those meetings where you tell people how great Alberta is?" I love it. So yes, I'm going to tell you how good Alberta is. The roots that I'm talking about are things like perseverance and common sense and the ability to thrive. And these are things that Ottawa has kind of been taken away from us for a long, long time. And you know, the interesting thing about it is, like Sandra said at the beginning, there is a lot of more common ground than I think people think there is. What we love about Alberta is what they seem to love about Canada, but that seems to be an old nostalgic thing. They love the Canada they grew up in. I do. I love Canada. I don't like to see the breakup of a country, but man, when I see them heading south real fast, no, I guess you can't say heading south, because that means there's an orange man down there that's really bad. And but you know, the same things that most of those people think are great, I think are great, but the Canada that they believe is not there anymore. The Alberta that we have is the closest thing to that Canada that used to was, and that's what I'm fighting for. I wrote a couple songs, so I'm going to sing them for you tonight, and I sing a lot better than I talk. I don't know why, probably because I think things through a little better. So this first song is all about that. Our Alberta roots run deep. The only life I know goes back 100 years, steeped in deep tradition of blood and sweat and tears. The value of hard work, common sense, and hope and truth, family and freedom, and the value of our youth. So it makes me want to hold on to what I know is right, and in the face of opposition, stand my ground and fight. My Alberta roots run deep. It's in my blood, it's in my bones, it gets stronger every day. And when somebody tries to move in and take it all away, I just draw a line there in the sand, stand my ground and say, my Alberta roots run deep. Yeah. Well, it's living on the land, watching life come and go, working hard and playing hard, in sunshine and in snow. We don't really ask for much, 'cause we know that God provides and has given us all the things we need to enjoy this life and thrive. So what makes us want to hold on to what we know is right, and in the face of opposition, stand our ground and fight. Our Alberta roots run deep, in our blood, in our bones, it gets stronger every day. And when somebody tries to move in and tear it all away, we just draw a line there in the sand, stand our ground and say, our Alberta roots, you can't hide it, they define us, made us who we are today. And when life's this good, you just don't throw it away. 'Cause our Alberta roots run deep. You can't dig them up, you can't pull them out. They grow deeper every day. And when somebody tries to move in and tear it all away, we just draw a line there in the sand, stand our ground and say, our Alberta roots run deep, run deep. I appreciate that so much. Especially you folks in the front. You're close enough you could throw stuff at me and it might make a mark here. You know, one of the coolest things that I've learned about traveling with these guys, and I've been doing this since March, end of February, I think, they asked me to join as a speaker. And I kind of wondered why, because we got really smart people out here. We got constitutional lawyers on the speaker list. We got economists. We got political scientists and people who've been thrown in jail for standing up for what they believe, and some just common singer-songwriter guy. But, you know, it takes all of us because we each kind of relate to someone different, someone that's like us. One of the coolest things I've found is getting to know the history of this incredible province. I've loved this place. We moved here when I was 2. I was born in New York State, but we escaped when I was 2. And I love it here. I was raised here. It's just right inside me. And I did not know that weren't even asked to join. We didn't ask to join Canada back in 1905. We was told we was doing it. And then ever since then, we was told what we was doing. And never once in our entire life have we actually had a chance to do what we're doing right now. We have a rare chance to have a say in our future. That, ladies and gentlemen, is rich. And yeah. And this system that we've got was designed right from the start to keep us held down. Every time it seems, right way back in 1905 to today, every time we start getting successful, Ottawa comes in and tries to destroy that and keep us down. And I'm kind of done. I'm done. It's time to get out and do what we was made to do in the first place. So this song was one I call Big Dreams. It's my little tongue-in-cheek history lesson of Alberta. Big Dreams. The dance floor is open. No, we didn't have to be brought here back in 1905. We was just fine, spending our time to mind our own business and thrive. But the East had different ideas. We was too good a deal to pass up. They saw what we had, and they wanted it bad, so they signed us up there on the spot. They said, we'll call you Alberta, land of big sky and big dreams. Hey, you do the work, we'll take the pay. That makes us the ultimate team. We realized that we was the peasant. Man, this arrangement just couldn't go far. They said, you feed the cow. We may allow you to take a small sip from the jar. Things just got worse as the time flew. The feds kept us stomping our necks. They take all our pay, keep our assets at bay. The whole thing's become a big wreck. Say goodbye to old Alberta, land of big sky and big dreams. Election day stinks, taking out all of our means. Oh, we've had it, we're rattled, we're just gonna move on and take back what's ours from the start. We ride a new horse and we chart a new course. Thank God we can finally be free. So raise a glass to old Alberta, land of big sky and big dreams. We're finally free to be who we should be and rid of the liberal schemes. Yeah. So let's all kiss and sing and breathe free again. Thank God we can finally be free. Oh, yeah. Last night it was quite a party. We were up in High River, and I said the dance floor is open, and this gal sitting down. It was you. Well, if you was there last night, she got up and she started doing one of these things. Now I'm a two-stepping fool, so I never figured out how you could dance by yourself. But she was up there doing one of these things, and pretty soon someone else comes up and joins her, and they're just a cutting a rug, and she runs over to about you and points at you, and you stood up, and he twirled her around, and we just had us a hoot last night. The last song that I'm going to do before we bring up Cory is a song that was inspired by a feller who got up at one of our meetings at the open mic that we talked about is going to happen after this. And this feller said, "I don't know what's going on. I don't have the answers." He says, "But I do know something's got to change." And he kept saying that. And the more he got talking about it, the more clear it became in his mind. Something's got to change. And I was thinking about that. A friend of mine had a brochure that his daughter had brought home. And it said on here regarding the upcoming referendum, it said, if you choose to leave, disaster is going to hit immediately. It's just that fear thing, you know? Everything's going to hell in a handbasket, and it's just going to be horrible. And I mean, the world's going to end. Life's going to end as we know it if you say yes, go. And then, honestly, this is what they said for the alternative. They said, if you choose to say no and stay in Canada, at least we get to keep the status quo. And the thing is, when you say status quo, that infers that something is not going to change, right? I mean, but look at what's changing. Every day there's something changing. And we are headed left and down the garden path so fast, right off the flippin' cliff. My initial thought was to that person who wrote that, well, if you want status quo, vote to leave. Because what we're trying to do is retain what we've known and what has worked for generations. And that's where I'm at. That's why I'm voting. So something's got to change. So I had to write a song about that. Something's got to change. Something's got to change. If it just ain't working, let's see what we can do. There she goes. If it's broke, it needs a fix. Same is true in politics. Let's talk Alberta. It's up to me and you. When that front wheel starts to wobble, you better pull your truck on over. You may not be the only nut that's loose. You can't just ignore it or pretend that it's okay, 'cause that shaky wheel is gonna cook your goose. Something's gotta change. Yeah, something's gotta change. When something's working, let's see what we can do. If it's broke, well, it needs a fix. Same is true in politics. Let's talk Alberta. It's up to me and you. Turn around. I don't have a crystal ball. Don't claim to have the answers or the way to hold back history's racing clock. But I know it's time to leave the couch. Time to hit our knees and rebuild this country on the solid rock. Something's gotta change. Something's gotta change. If it just ain't working, let's see what we can do. If it's broke, it needs a fix. Same is true with politics. So let's talk Alberta. It's up to me and you. You've heard that real insanity is to try the same thing over again and expect the same results. There's got to be an option. There's got to be a way to bring this crazy train wreck to a halt. Something's gotta change. Something's gotta change. If this ain't working, let's see what we can do. If it broke, it needs a fix. Same is true in politics. So let's talk Alberta. It's up to me and you. Thank you guys so much. And I hope that means something to you. The next fella that's going to come up here honestly really needs no introduction. Were you wanting to say something, or were you just standing there looking gorgeous? Oh, she said, no. How about our fine MC for the evening? All right, Miss Sandra. This next fella who's, the longer you stand there, the more I'm going to say about you, you know. He really needs no introduction. Mr. Cory Morgan has been rocking things down in Tabor. He can tell you all about that. He's been one of the founding members of the Western Standard News mogul empire. Oh, you're just an employee. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, he's a good man, my friend and yours, Cory Morgan. Good stuff, man. You bet.
And I promise you, I won't sing. And you should appreciate that.
You do interpretive dance, though, don't
Oh, it's back in my drinking days, no longer. No, it is good. You did this to me last night, too. Yeah. No, I'm an independent media. We can't afford new teeth.
Excuse us, we...
Yeah, right. And boy, there's a lot to keep me writing, a lot to keep me going. You know, the hardest thing with my job these days, I'm writing for Western Standard, Epoch Times, doing some stuff for Rebel Media now. The hardest part is figuring out what stories to cover because there's just so much crap coming down the line, unfortunately. I mean, just today I'll hit on a couple, you know, that relate to things today. We had our brilliant premiers have all been meeting over in Prince Edward Island, a nice shindig, rubbing shoulders, you know. And what's come of it, I think they agreed to allow us to buy booze directly from a business. How profound. I'm glad we sent you guys over to manage that in this broken federation with so many other issues, and that's what you came up with after 3 days of sitting together. We got our best and brightest on the job. Yeah. But then Doug Ford comes out, oh yes, and speaks again on using Saskatchewan's potash and Alberta's oil as negotiating chips to fight with Donald Trump. And, you know, I don't know if you saw the press conference he did, where he talked around and said there's a couple of provinces that don't pull their weight. This guy's collecting equalization. He's sucking the money out of our pockets to pay his budget, and he's saying we aren't pulling our weight. It's like having that useless nephew who lives in your basement complaining that you haven't been doing enough for him. And yeah, so that's what we get out of that front and the news front. But this is how Canada looks at things. The West is an asset, but an asset to serve the East. When it's low oil prices, when we're trying to take care of things, it's Alberta's oil. When they want it as a negotiating chip and oil prices become high, suddenly it's Canada's oil. We saw that with Pierre Trudeau Sr., and then later we're seeing it now. Watch for the grab, guys. Watch for the grab. The other thing that came up was legislation to bring language controls on federally regulated private companies in Canada. So in other words, you got to speak French. If you have a trucking company, you got to provide some French services. Anything that's federally regulated, air, anything that crosses a provincial line, suddenly you got to speak French. Now that's, or not every employee has to, but there's a degree of services you have to provide. This is one of the things I talk about. There's other aspects where the Federation isn't serving us well, and they're more subtle and they're more nuanced than people realize. We talk about equalization a lot because we could see it. It's pretty clear. We put this much out there in taxes and we get a much smaller amount back, and the equalization is a big symbol of that. But there's many, many other ways that we take it badly. Preferred subsidies, things like that to Eastern businesses. But the bilingualism is a big one that a lot of people don't understand. When we have hundreds of thousands of federal civil servants and they have to speak French, guess which province gets 90% of those jobs? And it's not enough now to keep it just to the federal civil service. Now they're going into private industry. This is a huge line being crossed. This is private companies. But how much news are you hearing about it? It's not making the headlines. CTV last night, I got to pull that up. I said it last night in the thing. I don't use my phone that often. But I'm going to show what we're dealing with legacy media. Self-serving, I know, because I work for the independent bunch. I mean, this was just beyond the pale, though, the phrasing with that. So we might have seen that with the blown deal from our master negotiator, Prime Minister Mark Carney, with the Gordie Howe Bridge. Whereas last week he said, we've got this deal and don't worry, we'll take all of the tolls till we pay our capital costs and then we'll split. Just a week ago he said that. But he wouldn't release the details of the deal. Then the details got out. And no, that's not the case whatsoever. So when he said one thing last week when he knew otherwise, what does it mean? Well, that's what I would have said. But CTV said it this way: conflicting messaging. And the conflicting messaging contrasted previous comments by Prime Minister Mark Carney. What a beautiful way to say liar, isn't it? Contrasts previous comments made by Prime Minister Mark Carney. This is our media, sugarcoating and carrying water for the Prime Minister. This is so people watching it at night don't realize the man lied to you, and on something very, very major. The most basic lessons in life are being lost and not being practiced. I learned that when I was a kid, trying to think I could get away with lying to my mother. If I'd have said it just contrasted with her interpretation of things, I would have got twice the spankings out of the deal and figured it out. But we've got an ugly, broken system, but we've got a lot of hope, and we've got means to bypass it. We don't have to get our information from legacy media any longer, and we can't. It's not going to give us a good picture. That gets back to where we are with Let's Talk Alberta. Because there's one thing the government can't do, they can't get between. And that's us in this room here right now, face to face, one-on-one, talking with each other. Events like this cuts through the filter. This cuts through the BS. This cuts through the ability of the establishment to control the messaging to us. And that's why it's so integral to have these. I'm so thankful that Chris and Shane and the rest of the volunteers, Max, have been working so hard in putting these together. Because we have an opportunity going right now that we haven't seen in generations. We really do have a chance to make change. I understand the question coming this fall is non-binding. I understand it's a word salad that really isn't what most of us wanted. But it's still something on the path towards independence which we must get towards, and we must pursue it more than we ever have before. And it's going to come through conversations. None of us in this room have ever seen unity on the discussion slate so much as we've seen in this last year. I mean, even back during the National Energy Program, I don't believe it was sustained for that long with this much discussion. We've had it going for more than a year now, and it's going to carry on. And that's great, because the more people talk, the more we have exchanges, the more we discuss these things, the more people come to the conclusion that I suspect a lot of the people in this room already came to, that the country is fundamentally broken, independence is our best path to save Alberta. We can't save it all, but we could save Alberta. It's not an anti-Canada thing, it's a pro-Alberta thing. But it's going to take discussions, it's going to take a lot of talk. This is a personal issue to a lot of people. And we can be dismissive. A lot of what I go into with the book, I wrote things like that. We're not all politicians. We're not trained to make a political case to people. But we have to train ourselves to be those people for this next year or two. Because I can do as much as I can on independent media and reach a lot of people. Brochures can get to a lot of mailboxes. Books can go out. Politicians can say a lot of things. But when it comes to a personal decision, that's usually when a person moves on that, when they talk one-on-one with somebody they know, with somebody they trust. Those conversations, that's how you move hearts. And we can be dismissive of people saying, your case is just emotional. All you do is talk about, sentiment, but the hard reality shows what a bad deal it is. Disrespecting somebody's sentiment will only make them dig their heels in further. It is a real thing that will change their vote. So even if we don't see that as a good rational reason to vote to maintain the status quo, we have to understand and respect that and approach them from that realization if we want to move them from there. And that takes time, it takes effort, and it takes questions, and it takes respect. And we can do that, but it's going to be one conversation at a time. And they know that. They don't want us to have the conversation. We're seeing that with the opponents, the people defending the status quo. The third-party advertising group I started was just specializing in signs. I'm just putting signage out there, putting things around to show somebody can endorse and say, I support this concept, putting that color of blue out there, because I want the conversations to start. Signs don't change minds, I know that. But if a person has that sign on their front lawn, maybe when they're mowing the lawn next time they're going to talk to their neighbor and that subject will come up. They're going to feel more comfortable talking about it because, you know what, there's 3 or 4 of those signs on the block, and people are starting to realize this is something we don't have to keep in the closet anymore. That's the value of the signage. Just showing, and the shirts you're wearing, the hats, the flags on your car, they do serve a purpose. They don't change minds, but they invite the conversation. And they want to shut down the conversation. And that's what we're seeing all around. We're seeing venues that get canceled. They don't want us to be able to get together and have these conversations. In the cities, my signs have 1 in 5 signs are being stolen within the first week they go on a lawn. Getting ripped out. That's pathetic. Signs got vandalized out south of Okotoks, though the way we responded, I don't know if people saw that online, guy spray painted our sign. We put up 2 signs, much larger, higher, and put 2 flags next to it. And there's a camera on it. Every time they push, we've got to push back harder. As Ben mentioned, the Tabor incident. I mean, right off the beginning of things, I was waiting for printers to make signs. We'd had some donors. It was great. This thing was taking off more than I anticipated. Well, let's spend some money. Let's get some others. Somebody called me and says, I know a guy who has digital billboards. You can put a sign up there. Great. We can get a message up. I just have to email them the file and do an e-transfer, and a day later, that Choose Alberta sign's up there. A day after that, the town of Tabor sends a notice saying, take that notice off of that sign or we're going to pull your business license. And so what did I do? I bought space on the other 2 billboards in Tabor, so they had 3 of them. We've sent a legal demand letter for the city to retract that. They're still stonewalling us. We'll see where that goes. And we had a large driving rally down in Tabor, handed out hundreds of signs. That town's probably bluer than most of the ones in Alberta, but we got to keep pushing back. But their first instinct is to shut down the discourse. That lets you know why it's so important. They're afraid of us talking with each other. If they were confident in their case, the opponents, they wouldn't be afraid of us having the conversations because they figure they're going to win it anyways. They don't want to have it. They don't want to have the referendum. They don't want to give us the choice. This is a weak case, but we still have to win a lot of people. Part of what we've got to do is identify those people who are in the middle. And that is the bulk. I mean, if we held a vote tomorrow, I don't believe for a second there would be a winning independence vote. Not yet. We're closer than we've ever been. We've got momentum. We've had more discussion than we've ever had. But we aren't there today. So in reaching those people, having those conversations I'm talking about, is identifying which ones are worth talking to, at least on this subject. An analogy I've heard used before, and I like it. You know, when you kind of look at things, because you're always kind of consciously campaigning. When the campaign is now on your shoulders, you're kind of looking for those opportunities, whether it's at the bar, at the dinner table with a family member, at a soccer game, wherever it might be. Places where you interact with others, you might get the chance for a conversation. But the red light people are those ones, you know, their elbows up. They got a picture of Trudeau in their house. They're never moving. They're just federalists to the end. They might even be great people. Might be close friends, might be family members. But you know them. You'll know them quickly. So as I said last night, it's just like vegans. They'll let you know. And that's fine. Let them be federalists. Don't waste your energy or ruin a relationship or a friendship fighting with the red light people. It's not worth it. You're not getting them anywhere. Also, green light people. That's great. A lot of them in this room. We're already there. We can network. We can enjoy each other's company. We can share experience. We can move things forward, but we're also preaching to the choir. It's those ones in the middle. It's the yellow we got to reach. And once we identify them, we've got to talk to them. And we got to spend time. And the best way to begin anything, and it's contrary to a loudmouth like me, ask them. You know, we talk at people too much. And when you want to move them, the first thing to do is ask them, because just about everybody does have concerns. They are worried. They are concerned about freedoms. They are concerned about taxation. They're wondering about the future for their kids. They're wondering about all the same issues we are. They just haven't come to the conclusion, perhaps, that independence is the way to get out of it. But if you start asking them what their concerns are, they will talk. It makes people receptive. It's not being deceptive, it's being genuine. Because we do know that most roads end up leading to independence anyway. So let them start that conversation and move from there. You know, why are you concerned about this? This is the way we have to treat this, to bring people over. And then we're going to win them one by one. It sounds painful, but that's the way it's going to happen. And we're the best equipped to do it. Coming to events like this is where we can help educate ourselves. Other things, when we're talking to people, we got to be able to have answers for some of those questions we hear so often. And if we don't have them, something we shouldn't be afraid to say is, I don't know. It's one of the sins I think campaigners make quite often. Don't just start freelancing it. It's people have good BS detectors. They're Albertans, and that's just going to put them off. But you can always say, I don't know, and get back to you on that. Let me look into it. Let me check online. But the fewer things you can say, I don't know to, the easier your conversation will be as well. So coming to events like this, looking at things online, getting some of those fantastic brochures that Chris has put together in the back, and those booklets, they really help arm you for this. But the emotional one, the other thing is we got to be positive, positivity. I mean, they like to label us as divisive, as angry, as nasty, as trying to break something. We're trying to build something. I can never memorize that quote, and it's such a good one. It's one from Ayn Rand, but it's along the lines of no revolution has ever happened actually just moving away from something. You've got to be moving towards something. That's the only way you're going to win it. We have to make sure we're convincing people we're making a positive future. They already know the status quo stinks, fair enough, but we've got to make them pretty confident that what we're offering is better. And that positivity, that outlook, we're trying to make a better future for the kids. We're trying to make a freer future. We want to make things better. Most of us already know everything that's wrong. Some of it, too, is being positive about Canada. As Ben said, too. Like, I'm not triggered by Canadian flags. They don't bother me. I was very fortunate to have been born and raised in Canada. This was a free country. I've had a good life compared to a whole lot of places, and that's because of the work and sacrifices of some really damn tough and determined and dedicated people, generations before me, who fought in wars for the freedoms we're enjoying today. And I am not dismissing anything that those people did. I will respect our veterans until the day I die for everything they've given me. And most of us, I can tell in this room, feel the same. But our opponents like to try to use that. Look at some of our smarter opponents when it comes to debate. If those are the people who saw Jason Kenney debating Keith Wilson a while back. And where did Kenney go? He went straight to the heartstrings. He went straight to the emotion. Now, Kenney's a smart man. He's a very good communicator. He's a very good politician. He could have made the case, or at least tried to make the case on economics and a number of other things. Instead, he went for the emotion. Why? Because he knows it works. And he started talking about Memorial Drive in Calgary and the veterans and all of those sorts of things. Basically saying the independence movement is disrespecting all the work those people did. And he's doing that because it's effective.
From the leader of the rooftop game.
Yes, yes. So, but he knows what he's doing. How do we counter that? Again, it's those one-on-one conversations when people do realize that, no, we are genuine. We still respect and value and appreciate everything they did. Canada won't vanish when we become independent. Our history won't vanish. The work that people did before us won't go away. That history is still there. This is just an evolution. It's not ending something. It's just continuing something. This is building on the freedoms they gave us to work. People of Quebec, we just have different values and different goals. The rest of the country. But when you look on an airline, when you're riding on there and you pull that thing out there behind the barf bag and actually look at those directions, and if you actually listen to that stewardess up front, what's the first thing to do if the oxygen masks drop? You put on your own first. We're just putting on our own. We can help Canada once we've fixed ourselves. The same analogy works in the oil field with H2S. You see somebody drop, you can't run in there until you've protected yourself first. Or even to go further, if somebody's drowning. How often does it happen when a rescuer swims out and the person flailing pulls them down with them? We've got to do things controlled, got to do them with foresight, got to do them with positivity, and it will be better for Alberta and it will be better for Canada in the long run. They'll figure that out later, though. We have to figure it out now. And through these conversations, we're going to figure out how to do it. What I love is I'm going to close this off and hand this to Chris quickly at these events too, is the interactivity of it. Because I learn at these. Everybody will always hit us with a question in the question and answer period that I never even thought of and catch me flat-footed. And then the next time I won't be flat-footed again. And we just keep talking, we keep learning. We're not talking ourselves in circle with Let's Talk Alberta. We're talking ourselves towards something. So thank you for giving me your time tonight, guys. And I'm looking forward to that question and answer and speaking to you afterwards in the back as well. And I'm going to bring up the person who put this whole Let's Talk Alberta thing together, Chris Scott from the Whistle Stop Cafe, a great patriot and freedom fighter. And he'll bend your ear for a little while and make you understand why this is all a good thing. Thanks, guys.
Let me just set this aside. Hopefully I have the camera set up properly because I'm not wearing pants.
How is that distracting?
Thanks, Ben. Okay, well, thank you all very much for coming out tonight. As I was sitting back there watching the live stream, Brad's giving me the thumbs up. Yes, my no pants aren't showing in the video. I was watching the comments and I started to think about what's important for us to do in the next little while, and actually really with civics, what is critically important for us to do? Communicate. Communication is critical in any relationship, whether it is our relationships with our friends and our neighbors, communication is critical, or our spouse or our girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever, or communication within a relationship within a a few things in the last 30 minutes that kind of concern me a little bit about the state of our society. I read a Facebook post that had a picture of me and some of my friends, including, who was on there? Jeff Rath and Mitch Sylvester, my friend Lawrence, Berta Brown dad was on there, a whole bunch of them. I think Cory was on there. And the caption was, what was the caption, Sandy? The Modern Day Klansmen of Alberta. Well, the poster is implying that I am a racist and I'm a member of the Ku Klux Klan.
Wow.
That's what the poster is insinuating, alleging. And what does something like that do? What is the emotion associated with a comment like that? How would somebody view me if they believed what that person was alleging about me?
If I didn't know you now, I probably would have said, well, you seem like a bad guy.
They would think I'm a bad guy. Maybe even go so far as to dehumanize me, think that I am not worthy of life, that I'm worth unaliving because I'm a racist. And then it occurred to me that this is only happening because I dare to communicate my opinions to people. I am a very strong advocate for an independent Alberta. I am. My opinion is that Alberta independence is not only necessary, but it is inevitable. And I go all over Alberta, and I have conversations with people, and I tell them my opinion. This is my opinion. And then I invite people to tell me what their opinions are. Challenge mine. Tell me how I'm wrong. Debate these things with me. Because my opinion could be wrong, right? I'm not perfect. I make mistakes just like every other human being. And I want to make the best decisions going forward for me and my family and my friends and my neighbors. Even my enemies, because I'm supposed to do things to help my enemies prosper as well. We don't always like to do that, but we're kind of commanded to do it. I want to make the best decision. That means that I have to be willing to communicate with people that don't agree with me. So lately, Let's Talk Alberta has been specifically inviting the people who disagree with my opinions. And by the way, some of the speakers have differing opinions than me. One of the speakers that speaks with Let's Talk Alberta, he is not an independence-minded person. He does not believe Alberta should or needs to be independent. I disagree with him. We share a stage. We share meals. We go to each other's houses. We don't call each other Klansmen or try and create public rage at each other so that maybe somebody, not like we have any unhinged lunatics in society or anything like that, but somebody may believe that they are being righteous by exterminating my ability to communicate. Problem. And no party lines. It isn't a political problem. This is a societal problem. This is the result of, I guess 20 years of social media in which we've been kind of become accustomed to speaking to a screen and typing things on a computer rather than having these conversations face to face. So much so that now I've gotten emails from people saying things like, how dare you talk to me about this? How dare you spread your vile opinion? And I'm like, well, that's interesting. I'm trying to talk to people who have differing opinions than me because, I want to bring them to my side, of course, but I'm also willing to change my mind if they can present a good case for me to do so. My opinion has changed a few times in the last few years. At one point, I believed the government just all needs to be torn down. We need to do something completely different because it's horrendously corrupt and just it's not operating the way the average person would like to see governments run. And we see this in different aspects all of the this referendum on Alberta independence so that we can have leverage we've never had before, so we can negotiate a better deal. We can change things. We can fix things. We can unify Canada by fixing the things that are wrong right now. And the things that are wrong in Canada is largely it's East and West. It's Western alienation because of policy that favors the East. And that's the way it's been for 100 and some odd years. It's nothing new. I wanted that. And now I will tell you that as I've gone on this journey, I believe Alberta independence, full sovereignty, is necessary and inevitable. Why? Not because I want to break up the country, not because I'm a separatist, not because of any of that, but because I want Alberta to be sovereign the way it was intended to be. I want Albertans to be able to decide what their future looks like. I want Albertans to be able to choose the legislation and the policy that governs them because it affects us. I'm tired of watching Alberta be subject to legislation that's passed somewhere else by people who don't suffer the consequences. And we're seeing it again. We have premiers saying, come on, Alberta, just use your oil and your resources as a weapon in our trade war. Saskatchewan, use your potash. Just cut it off. Don't sell your potash to your partners anymore, your trading partners. And I'm thinking, man, that's 150,000 jobs in Alberta. And we have people in other places of the country who would not suffer those consequences, who expect Albertans like you and me to sacrifice their future to fight their trade war. That is ridiculous. I do not believe that Albertans should be subject to policy and governance from someone else that negatively affects them, and that Albertans shouldn't be able to change that. It will be completely different if I knew, or if it was true, that Albertans could go to the ballot box in a federal election and we could all vote in a unified fashion and we could make sure that our values and our principles are represented in the House of Parliament. That'd be fantastic. Then our MPs could change law and make law so that they could fix some of these things. Maybe we could make sure that this divide between East and West gets fixed. But we can't do that. And we've seen that for the last 3 federal elections. We watched as, and in federal politics, it's largely conservative against liberal, but we watched as, in the last election, as a conservative party with a 30-point lead was annihilated by the East's desire to fear Trump. That's what won the election. That's what they campaigned on. And Albertans, we're over here like, none of this really makes sense. The policies haven't changed. It's still the same Liberal government that's going to impose the same types of policies that have been a pain in our ass for 15 years. And the election before that, we watched as we elected another Liberal government, even though all of Western Canada voted against that. The election prior to that, same thing. The West voted largely unanimously, except for a few areas in the larger centers. But we mostly voted the same way. And at 8 o'clock, our polls closed in all of these elections. And at 8:09, I watched CBC announce our government, announce the election results. Our ballots hadn't been counted. Saskatchewan's ballots hadn't been counted. British Columbia's ballots hadn't been counted. And the election was called. So as a Western Canadian, I was left sitting there stunned, wondering what kind of democracy doesn't even acknowledge that a third of the Democratic voice exists. That's a problem for me. That's a problem. In a democracy, you should be able to solve the problems that plague you. And generally, it's government stuff. We should be able to solve it, and we can't. So, what do we do? How do we fix this? Well, a referendum on Alberta independence would be a great start. Not because I want to break anything up or destroy anything, but I believe that people should be able to self-determine. No man or no woman should be subject to laws that they cannot change. Period. That's not democracy. That's colonialism. And that's not how things are supposed to operate these days. Even on the international stage, Canada, the country that is largely being quite, I wouldn't say very polite to Alberta, standing up for itself, even Canada acknowledges that self-determination is a right of a people. When Kosovo declared their independence, it was controversial. It wasn't all perfect, all the I's dotted and T's crossed. There was a lot of people that were upset about the way it went. Canada was one of the first countries to recognize the people's right to self-determination. Our Prime Minister just did it again with Palestine. It's true. Canada respects self-determination. So why would they not respect Alberta's desire for self-determination? Why would they not respect the will of Albertans to be able to chart their own course? That boggles my mind. So there's a lot of information within this conversation. There's a lot of questions people have. There's a lot of objections people have because they believe that, something they see on TV, we're going to lose our pensions, we're going to lose our old age security, we're not going to get federal transfers anymore, we're going to be landlocked. There's a number of things, all of which I could debate effectively and bring people to be aligned with my opinion. There's a bunch of trifolds at the back there that we put a lot of this information on. Why do we do that? Because it would take hours to stand up here and give you all of that information. I say this because yesterday I got an email after last event, or the event prior, and someone said, I was really disappointed because I wanted the information. You guys are up there talking about this, and I expected the information that I can tell my friends. Well, you will have a chance to ask whatever questions you want, get whatever information you want in the Q&A. We will stay up here until all of your questions are answered, if we have to. That's no problem. I don't know what concerns you have. I don't know what questions you have until we ask you. However, you can take those trifolds with you. There's a number of them that have a ton of information. Almost all of the questions that people have asked me, I've answered. I've written blogs about it. They're available for you to read at whistlestoptruckstop.ca/blog. I compile everything I can on my website so it's easily accessible. We do those trifolds so you can take them with you. There's bundles of 100 there. If you take them, I would appreciate if you could leave us a donation so we can afford to print more. Printing is ridiculously expensive. I don't know how people can afford it. Last week, I think we spent something like $8,000 printing material. But we want to answer your questions. That we're actually asking these questions, that we're participating in this conversation, it tells me something very important. Things are changing. The fact that this conversation has become mainstream, that Federalists, who benefit greatly from the status quo, by the way, are taking time out of their busy lives of collecting their pensions and going on ski trips to advocate for the status quo. They're going on the mainstream media and podcasts and, pardon me for being so frank, but lying to us and gaslighting us. They're taking time out of their day to try and discredit the things we say. But the interesting thing about that is, even though I'm just a humble, superly, ruggedly handsome, strong, smelling, nice, did I mention humble, burger flipper from Mirror, Alberta, I've taken the time to learn as much as I can about these things because I need to. I need to make sure that in October, when I answer that question, I know how to answer it. I need the facts. I need to have the conversations. None of them have yet accepted our invite to come and present to you. I would love for Thomas Lukasik or a Forever Canadian leader to come to a Let's Talk Alberta event and stand on this stage and pitch the status quo to you. I want that. I want them to come sit on this stage with me, across from me, and talk about this. Debate this subject with me. Try and change my mind. Try and show the whole world that I'm a fool. You know, they say that I'm foolish, and some of them call me a moron because of the things I say, yet they won't debate me on it. Hasn't happened yet. And we need that to happen. I said this last night. If somebody doesn't come and start having these conversations with us, I'm going to continue to go all over Alberta and share my opinion. What did I say my opinion is? Alberta independence is necessary and inevitable. And if nobody challenges me on that, if nobody stumps me with a question or a comment, I'm going to continue doing that. And up until now, I bet you, Shane and I estimated we've done around 80 meetings or something like that. In the last 6 years, if I haven't talked to 150,000 Albertans by now, I would be very surprised. And I will share my opinion with every Albertan I meet. I will wear a blue shirt, whether it's a Let's Talk Alberta shirt that are available from Sandy back there. They're overpriced, but they help support the movement. Or maybe I'll wear a Free Alberta shirt that you can purchase from the lovely Jessica back there. Also overpriced, but they sure make a statement and open up a conversation. Or maybe I'll have a bumper sticker from Brad and Bahra over there that I'm going to put on my car and have and start a conversation. I'm going to keep doing that. And when I share my opinions with people and answer their questions, I'm going to bring them to my side. And then in October, I'm going to bring a massive amount of people with me. And we're going to go and we're going to vote in that referendum. And you know how I'm going to vote right now, unless someone changes my mind, they're going to vote like that too. So if someone believes that's the wrong course, they sure better get in these chairs and explain to us why it is. That's what civics is. That's what democracy is. If we don't have the conversation, if we don't talk about things, bad things will happen. Whether it's a poor outcome in an election, which we've seen year after year after year because people don't talk, they just believe the talking points and the gaslighting from the politicians, or whether it's people failing to talk and instead believing something they see on social media that justifies their actions in removing me from this world and ending my voice. And we've seen that, haven't we? This is some very serious stuff. So when I was considering what my path was, those words rang in my head that Charlie said, when people stop talking, bad things happen. So I decided that I was going to start an organization, drag and voluntold a whole bunch of people with me, and we're going to call it Let's Talk Alberta. And we are going to talk and talk and talk until we can't talk anymore. And we're going to make sure that whatever future Alberta has, we're going to do everything we can to make sure it is the best possible outcome. We have a moral obligation to do so. Because the reason we can do that is because other people, much better people than me, have given their lives so that we can do this. Cory mentioned he's proud to live in a place where he can do this. I am blessed to be a Canadian that I can share my opinion, even if that opinion means that I want to leave Canada. It means a lot to me. It means even more to me when I consider that there are places on this earth where millions of people have had to die to get the opportunity to answer a question of self-determination. In some places, they have fought wars for hundreds of years, just so a group of people can get to a ballot box and decide. And here we are in Alberta, comfortable, giving a little bit of our time, hopefully filling those yellow buckets at the back because this stuff isn't free, maybe buying some overpriced merch, and then we waltz into a ballot booth, and in complete privacy, we have ballots, we have a pen, and we can change the future without ever having to throw a punch or fire a bullet or any of those things that other people have had to do. We have a moral obligation to understand that, to internalize what it means, and act accordingly. So, please, let's talk. Alberta about this opportunity, and make sure that we honor the sacrifices that had to be made for us to have the opportunity to do so. We will be I forgot about those yellow buckets that I mentioned. We're going to take a 10, 15-minute, it's usually 15-minute break. Please mingle, visit the other presenters, talk amongst yourselves, fill the buckets, buy all the merchandise. That would be absolutely wonderful. Consider grabbing a stack of those trifolds to take and hand out to people who are interested in this conversation. And then we're going to come back and do a Q&A. So do you want to just do the bucket thing really quickly? Do I have to keep talking? Yes. Okay. 4 and... No, sorry, that wasn't my speech. I'll tell you a little, while they're passing out the buckets, I want to tell you all why I moved to Alberta. You might not know this, but I'm actually a BC boy. I was born in Campbell River, British Columbia. And I lived in Campbell River until I was 1, and then my parents moved to Kamloops, BC. And I was raised in Kamloops. We moved back to Vancouver Island when I think I was 14 or 15, I can't remember. And that's where I spent my teenage years, which was absolutely wonderful place to be a teenager. And I remember when I lived in BC, I had my first taste of what government policy did. So when I started paying attention, British Columbia had an NDP government, and I realized, whoa, some of the things that are happening shut down industry in Campbell River. And it put us in a place where those of us that wanted to work, we were fighting for $7 an hour jobs. Like, that was the thing. There was people twice my age competing for the same job that I wanted as a kid. And that was just the way it was. And then we had an election, and I was so excited. I was thinking, wow, we're gonna fix this. Finally, we're gonna change things. And then we elected an NDP government again. And I'm scratching my head thinking, why do people love this punishment? And I didn't understand the nuances of politics at the time, but I started to think about it. So fast forward a few years, I'm working for minimum wage again, always struggling. And one of my friends had come out to Alberta to work on a service rig. And every time he came home, he had you remember those DVD players that were really expensive and all those DVDs? He had that, and he was buying leather couches and all these things that were completely unattainable for me. And I thought, I want that. Why am I spinning my wheels here? So I bought a $99 youth standby WestJet plane ticket. And in 2 or 3 days from the time I made the decision, I flew to Edmonton. I arrived at 7 a.m. I took a cab to Leduc Safety Services, and I did my H2S. The next day, I did my first aid, I think. I can't remember. I think it was the next day, maybe the following. And then I worked temp agencies in Edmonton for 10 days. Layfield Plastics I worked at. And then I went to work on a service rig. And I never looked back. I came to Alberta because of the Alberta dream. People can come here, they can work hard, and they can prosper. And prosper I did. I blew most of it. I mean, boats and sleds and all of the things that don't stick around through a boom or the bust after the boom. And I realized that I am an Albertan. I believe in the values that built Alberta. I believe in going to work and working really hard and then having fun after. I believe in the faith, family, and freedom mantra. I believe in individual rights and liberties. I am an Albertan. And I do believe that Alberta is the last bastion of those types of values in Canada. Well, Saskatchewan kind of shares some of that. Saskatchewan and Alberta. Coincidentally, Saskatchewan and Alberta were the 2 provinces that were never asked if we wanted to join Confederation. Just like most of the other things that have happened in federal politics, the Parliament passed a piece of legislation, imposed it on the Northwest Territories, created Alberta and Saskatchewan, and we've been along for the ride ever since. We can do better. And much like that young buck who decided, hey, I can be more prosperous if I only go here. Alberta has that same opportunity. We can be prosperous like that if we just take control of our future. We get on that airplane, we go a little bit into the unknown, and we do something we've never done before. We can have that kind of prosperity, and that's what Alberta means to me. So thank you for putting stuff in the buckets. We're going to take our 10, 15, probably 15, 20-minute break now, and we'll be back to answer all of your questions and accept any of the challenges you have to my statement that Alberta independence is necessary and inevitable. Thank you.
So we're going to intermission mode, guys. Set up the chairs and everything, and we'll be right back. Yeah, you good? Am I live? Yeah, yeah.
Okay, we'll get started. I'll ask the speakers to start making their way towards the stage. While they're headed this way, I'm going to ask a couple of favors of you. The very first favor I need to ask is, we have a real problem, and we found out it's even worse than we thought. We did an expensive mail out for Nanton, and not a single one of you apparently got it in your mailbox. So I need to ask you to go to letstalkalberta.com or freedomcalendar.net. Grab posters for upcoming events and share them out to people that you may know in that area. And ask them to share them out to people that they know. Because that seems to be the only way we're going to get the message out of these meetings. Because they, at every turn, they seem to put a throttle on us. It's what I call the shampoo method. And as you can tell, I know lots about shampoo. But we all remember the Clairol commercials from the 1970s and 80s. You tell two friends, they'll tell two friends, and so on, and so on, and so on. So if you could do that, that'd be greatly appreciated. The other thing is if you look to the east, you will see a beautiful 8 by 16 banner. I am looking for highway frontage that we can put those on, and specifically on Highway 2, Highway 1, and Highway 16. We want on the other major highways as well, but I'm having trouble getting them up on those three corridors especially. I'm getting a lot of coverage in the east, getting some now in the west, but those three, I'm really having troubles finding people that will put them up along those major corridors. So if anybody wants to host those signs, just talk to me, and I will make sure you get one of those. So now they're all up there. So, whoa, Mitch Scott's not there yet, so I guess I get to talk. Well, I've never been at a shortage for words, so I'm usually accused of talking too much. But okay, I will now hand this microphone to Jasper. And if you have a question, I ask that you put your hand up, and Jasper will bring the mic to you. Please don't try asking the question without the mic, because the people online won't be able to hear the question, and we want everybody to hear the question so that they know what is being answered. So here, I will hand it to Jasper.
Thank you. If you have a question, raise your hand and I will come up to you. It's always scared to be the first one, I guess.
Okay.
Oh, here we go.
I think you're muted.
My name is Deborah, and someone knew I was coming here tonight, so they asked me to ask this question. If Albertans approve or vote in the question 10, when does the process towards separation referendum begin, and how long would it likely take before a binding referendum can be held?
Good question. I don't know. I don't know if anybody really knows. The issue is the question that's coming up in October, question 10, do you agree that the government should begin the legal process according to the Constitution to pursue sovereignty, or whatever it is. All that is saying that, yeah, we want the government to think about doing something in the future and potentially put a question to us when they feel like it. The problem I see is that I really believe that after that October question is answered, even if it's a resounding will for the conversation to continue and the process to start, I think that the government's probably going to gaslight, which is what they always do, and they're going to say, okay, great, now let's just sideline that And you need to focus on fearing the NDP because we have an election coming up in 2027. So just fear the NDP, give us your money, support us, and then we'll deal with this sometime in the future. But if you don't support us, you're never going to get your question on the ballot. So make sure you support us. That's what I think is going to happen. And I'm a little bit maybe politically jaded. I feel a little bit politically homeless right now because of some of the things that have happened. But this process with this referendum, I don't think it's going to be quick. There are things that Albertans could do to make the process go a lot quicker. It would require some courage to actually change things. But what happens in October is going to set the tone for what happens in the next election. So it's very important that the will of Albertans is conveyed very clearly in October so that we can do what we need to do to achieve the outcome we want.
Yeah, just gonna add a bit from the political perspective. I used to play in the partisan game a lot. I haven't been a member of a political party in over 5 years. I won't be for a while now. Mostly just because I write on them. Not that I feel that the person shouldn't necessarily be a member. Just looking at it from that political lens, if I was within the party, I suspect what's going to happen. There's no way on earth the UCP wants to hold a referendum during the year a general election is going to hit. I know there's been debate, and Keith Wilson's pointed out that the legislation says you can't start a petition during an election year, but the Premier can schedule a referendum anytime she pleases. That's absolutely true. But it's kind of as Chris said, they will find reason after reason to make sure that does not get scheduled before the general election is held. I'm just being realistic about it. I'm not trying to, but still, what's important is to get as strong a vote in this one as possible. If we get 60% in that vote, we might get an election in a year or two, or a referendum, a proper one. If we get under 50%, we won't get one. So it's still important. I know it's a convoluted path, it's an unfair path, it's a painful path, but the importance of having a strong message and showing and things, we're going to get there one way or another. We don't give up. They're going to throw hurdles, roadblocks, gaslight, as Chris said, do all sorts of things. But the importance in this one that's coming this fall, it's not futile, it's not unimportant. I just wouldn't want to give people false hope thinking that would happen and then a referendum would be scheduled 5-6 months after that. It's not impossible, but it's very, very unlikely, I think. That doesn't mean we stop working. There's a whole lot to do between then and where we go. The other part is, and it is true, things are in appeal, and that's going to be their main reason, and I think somewhat of a valid one. Until that appeal is sorted out, any attempt to put a straight yes-no question to a ballot's probably going to land an injunction within 3 days. They've got to get through that bloody appeal. And after that, they really start running out of excuses not to hold the referendum, though, especially if we came out to vote in as strong a numbers as possible, say we've demanded it. So it's important. Maybe I'm wrong. I have been many a time, but I think it'd be a while after that vote still before we actually get the real one. And to be frank, a little more time to convince those undecided might be doing us a favor anyways, because the real big vote's going to be the big vote.
I'm going to chime in again just so that you guys have some hope. Think about where we were 2 years ago. Did anyone in this room believe that this conversation would be mainstream? The Federalists would be kind of scrambling to control the narrative. We'd be holding town halls like this, and the conversation would be going international? In the grand scheme of things, we're way farther ahead in this conversation than we've ever been in history. So even though it's not exactly what many of us want to see, at the end of the day, we've made some extremely important progress. And like, I can't even imagine, thinking of me 2 years ago, I never thought that we would be where we are right now. So that's the hope I want to give you, that even though it's not perfect, we're making progress.
Excellent. You don't trust me. Good call. I'm Larry. Any insight as to what role the constituency associations can play leading up to the AGM and where they might lie at the moment, as far as what the question is going to be, or I mean, what the answer is going to be?
I mean, again, I'm not within the party, so I don't know, but the constituency associations are very important. That's another aspect to talk about, the work that never stops. And if you really want to put pressure on the top levels of the government, that's the path to do it, with your local organizations being involved, pressuring your local MLA or nominee potential if you're in a spot without a UCP MLA. It's variable as to which constituency associations are, you know, more active or pushing things more forward than others. I do strongly, as I said, I don't have a membership, I'm not trying to be a hypocrite, it's just because of a media role I have. But I think it's very important for people to have memberships and work within to keep pushing that policy forward. Make sure you have independence-friendly people in those associations at things like the AGM to make sure that that's not getting off the table, no matter how hard some of the establishment politicians might want to squirm. Not going to let them. You got to keep that pressure from the inside as well, and it's important. So they're going to play a big role. I guess it just matters on how active people are.
Another thing is, even if they're putting pressure on for something that isn't about sovereignty or independence, maybe not independence for sure, maybe it's just holding the Premier's feet to the fire over statements she's made. For instance, she says that she believes in a sovereign Alberta within a united Canada, correct? I would love that. But I'll tell you right now, there are at least 24 things that this government could have done with a ministerial order that would bring Alberta sovereignty back to Alberta instead of abdicating it to the east, that don't require a referendum, don't require a vote, nothing like that, totally constitutional. They could have done these things. And I'm not even talking about things as big as a pension plan, although they could have done that, but instead of taking sovereignty in that area, they instead put a referendum question in the way of it, which blows my mind. That's the opposite of making Alberta sovereign. We send all of our royalty payments to CIBC in Toronto every Friday. And over the weekend, that bank makes between $2 and $3 million of interest on that money. Did you know that? Why does it not go to Alberta banks to stay in Alberta? There's a number of things like that that our government could do, and they could do it with the stroke of a pen easily. And none of it has been done. So if you're a CA president or in some sort of position within the party, these are the questions we should be asking the Premier. If you truly believe in a sovereign Alberta, what are you doing to create a sovereign Alberta? And it's not even rocket science. It's not like it's an untrodden path. Quebec has been doing this for 60 years. One of the politicians from Quebec, he met with a group of Albertans last year in Calgary, and they actually gave him a copy of that great big huge thick independence Bible that Quebec's been building since the 60s. They've been contemplating these things, and they've done most of the things. You don't like that the CFIA can come onto your farm and kill all your chickens if one of them sneezes? That's a problem for you. It's a problem for me. It's a problem for our farmers, for sure. Well, why are we not doing it? Oh, because it's the Canadian Food Inspection Agency? Guess what? Quebec does it. All of these things, we could do so many of them. And within the party, you can put the pressure on for that. But on the other side of that coin, you also need to ask yourself, why is our Premier campaigning against Alberta's independence, purporting to campaign for Alberta sovereignty, and not having done any of those things that would create the sovereign Alberta that she talks about? That's my question.
So if you have any question, but you're hesitating to ask them, go over to the bar. Our volunteers will ask it for you. We're happy to answer every kind of question. We love fireworks, so we actually have one right now.
Okay. This is from a young man that is here today, and he's only 14. And he has a question, but he wanted me to read some thoughts that he wrote down first. He goes, I know what happens when we get the amount of money and people we need. We will win and make sure we have a future. And we need more kids who care about making sure they have a future, because I know I would like to have a future. And if we have the people we need, what will happen? Well, I'll tell you. We'll be stronger because there's power in numbers, and if we have the power, we can't be stopped. So what he's asking is, he's 14, and he wants to be involved. How do we get the youth involved, and where is there somewhere that he can go to get involved in the process?
That's a really awesome question. I would love to have young folks like that come here and tell us why they believe that Alberta independence is what they want to see. I would love for them to come here and ask questions that are relevant to their future, right? And they could do that. Really, we've sent invitations to even people that want the status quo to continue to come here and speak, and they haven't accepted yet. So I know it's a bit of an echo chamber, but I think kids like that, they would be welcome to come here and ask questions and speak and participate. And other than that, I think, is 14 the age requirement for joining a political party?
14 or 16?
I think it might be 14. So even a youngster of 14 years could get a membership in a political party and start participating and learn about it. I didn't learn about party politics until I was in my early 40s. I didn't learn about civics. I didn't read the Constitution. I didn't know what was in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. I didn't know any of these things until I was in my early 40s. Imagine if our kids knew how civics worked before they graduated high school. I think the world would be a much different place. And I also believe that there's a reason why they aren't taught that, because if we're confused, we lose. And most of us have been confused well into our adult life.
And to tie that in with your question about involvement in the CAs, our CA had one feller, he was about your age, about 14, and he was actually, he campaigned to be part of the CA board, and he was voted in, and he lasted there for a year, and what an experience. So put those two things together, get involved, start where you know you can, and the other thing is talk to your peers. You can say things and relate to them better than an old fart like me can, you know. So there you go. Oh, the mic.
With what you said, I can translate anything you say to the kids that don't understand it, because I know how they think and talk.
That's my point.
Yeah, and you've already done a first step that's fantastic, and I appreciate it, and that's coming out yourself and speaking to us. I'll just offer my own experience. I was always a political geek. I was a teenager when I got involved with the Reform Party, so we're talking a while back. It was this incredibly ancient, decrepit old man who sold me a membership to it, named Preston Manning, who was probably younger than I am now, but it sure seemed like he was old at the time. But something that happened there, and I got to watch for as I get older, because we forget, I'm just talking to ourselves a little bit, is remembering to respect our younger involved people when they come in. What happened with me a lot with Reform is I'd be invited to a lot of those events, and they'd put this, back then it was these god-awful light blue t-shirts, and they'd line us all up behind Preston to make him look a little younger when he's speaking. But when that's done, you're just kind of all shuffled off to the kiddie table, and actually your input wasn't that asked for among the other members. It's more like, you know, well, when you grow up, you can talk with us a little more. And that puts us off when we're younger. And I got to admit, I'm probably capable of being guilty of that attitude now too. So we, you know, just want to make sure that we fully welcome young people like yourself and really respect and appreciate the view that you bring, and not dismiss it as somebody who's wet behind the ears. They're bringing a perspective of the next generation, which is who we're working for right now. So again, thank you for bringing up that great question, and we'll better work on being able to bring more of your compatriots in and your help in bringing them too. Thank you.
Yeah, and to remember, for us folks, us old fuddy-duddies, to remember he's the leader of tomorrow. he's going to be taking over where we left off. So let's keep it up.
And helping shape policy that decides what happens to old people.
Yeah, just like me.
Before the next question, I just want to share something real quick. Don't ever discount young people, and young people don't ever underestimate the power that you can hold. My friend Benoit Trudeau, he was part of the youth faction of a political party in Quebec in the early 90s. And the way it worked out was that the party they were part of didn't respect them at all. And that whole youth wing ended up leaving and creating their own party. Well, they gained so much leverage. They actually won 7% of the vote in Quebec, elected 2 people to the legislature, and when it came time for the 1995 referendum question, the political party that was in power had to appease the youth, and the youth actually got input on what the referendum question was. So that's a pretty interesting thing that happened there. So don't ever think that your voice can't make a difference.
Good evening. My name is Patrick. I was born in Alberta, and I've been here pretty much my whole life, and I understand Western alienation. It's something that I've become aware of and struggled with for a long time, watching how politics works in Canada. That's got nothing to do with my question right now. I just wanted to tell you that. But you've been talking here, I've got a kind of a two-parter. You've been talking about how Alberta independence is inevitable and that you're going to continue this fight until it's won. So after the referendum is over, if the referendum is not supporting independence, what happens?
Well, the same thing that always happens. We keep talking to people, right? 3 years ago, the appetite for Alberta sovereignty was something like 10%. It was very low. And things change, people's ideas change, their feelings change, they watch things happen around them, and all of a sudden somebody that didn't believe in Alberta independence a month prior, now they do. And everyone has their own reasons. What we've seen in the last year specifically, a lot of people that I've had very heated arguments about Alberta independence have come on board to support the notion because of what they've seen. So I say that Alberta independence is necessary and inevitable. It's necessary because that's the only way that Albertans are ever going to be able to chart their own course or influence the policies that govern them. And I think that's very important. I say it's inevitable because if you look across history, countries don't generally get bigger. They get smaller because as a society grows, oftentimes, and we see that in Canada, one part of society, their values and principles just aren't compatible with the others. And rather than trying to govern under the same laws and fighting constantly and always being divided, 55 to 45% or whatever, it's oftentimes more comfortable to say, hey, we can agree to disagree, we'll self-govern, we can still be friends, much like what happened with Norway and Sweden, right? It wasn't a war, it wasn't a fight, it was this isn't comfortable anymore, let's just agree to disagree and we'll self-govern. And that's happened, there's a number of examples of that over history. Since 1990, there's been something like 38 new nations formed. 80% of those were done with a pen and paper without ever having any kind of conflict. It's just inevitable that as a group of people grow, they're not going to all want to be under the same governance, and it's important to recognize that and acknowledge the self-determination part.
Yeah, and I just want to add, I guess, we're shooting to win, but let's say in that eventuality, we wake up the day after and it was 40%. Pretty darn strong, pretty significant. Certainly nothing that's going away, but not exactly something that's going to twist the Premier's arm in a knot and get us a proper referendum soon. What we have to do is study why we didn't get where we had to and change that. In Quebec, they're doing the same thing. We've got to learn from them, and they've, I don't want to take decades like they have, but what they've been doing is trying to create winning conditions. And one of the biggest unfortunate handicaps we have, and Chris mentioned it, why don't we have a pension plan? I don't know how many of these meetings I've been to over the last couple of years, few years now with APP and other things. The number one question from a lot of people who are retired saying, I'm worried about my pension. And we can say to them 1,000 times that their pension's secure and nothing's going to change, but you can see their eyes glazing. They're saying, I'm too afraid to vote for change because I might lose my pension. If we already have our own pension that unknown factor is gone. And that element of people who are reticent in supporting this for fear of losing that $900 a month that they worked a whole lifetime to get will vote for independence. That's probably 10%, I bet. So we look at those things, why, and that's one of the things I talked about earlier too. It's still the time to talk to people and not just the undecided. Then we ask the ones who voted against, why did you vote against? And not yelling at them, why did you vote against? Asking them why they voted against so we can mitigate and change what that was. So the process never stops. We carry on. We just have to learn why it didn't happen this time, because we know where we have to go. And as Chris said, it's inevitable. But we want it sooner rather than later. And that'll mean working strategically then and changing those things to make the winning conditions for when the time comes.
Thank you. On the other side of the coin, if the vote or if the referendum does go to support separation, what do you think is going to happen to the province on the next day?
Nothing. Well, honestly, I don't think there's anything that will happen. There will be some celebrations, of course, probably some fireworks. There will be some people that are really upset. Social media will absolutely just go completely nuts. Every political commentator and influencer and podcaster in the country is going to have unending content. And then after a couple weeks, it'll settle down and nothing will have happened. Everything will be the same. We'll still have the same potholes in the road. We'll still have the same grievances. And then the conversation changes. What I feel the job of Let's Talk Alberta after an October referendum, if it is successful, and when I say successful, I'm meaning that we vote to start the process, our job changes. Our job becomes to talk to the people who feel disenfranchised by that outcome and not look at them as, opposition to where we want to go, but an ally that we just haven't reached yet. At the end of the day, whatever outcome happens, I will consider it a personal responsibility for that. So if I can't be a leader and effectively convey why Alberta independence is necessary and inevitable and bring enough people with me by October, I will consider that I've failed in that, and I'll just look and say, well, what can I do different? How can I reach more people? And I'll do that. It's not a fight. It's just about identifying what it is that people want, what it is that they're scared of, and talking to them about those things. And I'll tell you, and I'll challenge anyone in this room, every time someone has been brave and challenged me at one of our meetings and said, you know what, we can't become independent because of this, I've been able to turn that around and turn that into a reason why we must. That's what I do. And I hope somebody will stump me eventually, and they'll give me a reason why we can't, because then my life becomes easier and I'm no longer a target, but it hasn't happened yet.
I guess to go further, it kind of comes similar to what I was talking about earlier. If, say, 60% vote for option 2 in question 10 this fall, I still don't believe it would mean there'd be a referendum within 365 days, but there will be one soon, and it'll be inevitable. It's a matter of then that mandate is there, and it's undeniable, and it's been given to the government, and they might kick, they might scream, they might dig in their heels. How bloody, and I'm saying this figuratively, it has to get before they realize this has to happen, I guess will be up to them. Does it mean that a leader gets removed? Does it mean some MLAs lose some nominations? Does it mean, a number of things, as we're talking about within the party, where that pressure can be exerted? But that referendum will be scheduled. I think to a degree, and knowing politicians, I use the analogy often, Smith likes talking about that, that's Ralph Klein's old favorite saying, he doesn't make the parade, he looks for it and he gets in front of it. If you've had 60% of the province say, we want you to start this process, don't worry, they're going to get in front of it. Even if they don't believe in it, they'll do it because they want to save their own political skins. But we have to make sure that mandate's in front of them so they have no other way to squirm out of it. So, and some will try anyway. But the stronger we can get this fall, the faster, the more effective, and the better the process is going to be to get to a referendum, a real referendum.
Hi, my name is Greg. I'm a retired military chaplain living here in Nanton. We're in the process, we're starting a church here in the town. And so my question to you is, in what way do you see this as a spiritual battle as opposed to a political battle?
You're going right down my path here. And that's the interesting part is we're not a Christian organization. LTA isn't. Some of us are, some are not, and that's okay. Just, you know, we still work together towards many common goals. But and so that doesn't, you know, that makes it so that I'm not free to give my personal opinion on that part of it until someone like you asks. And no, I do appreciate that, because I really do feel that that's what's going on. And if you're not a person of faith that really gets excited about Judeo-Christian values running a country, you don't have to worry about that, because you can be an absolute card-carrying atheist and still appreciate values like truth and honesty and integrity and peace, because those are actually what God himself represents and has built into us. That's my belief. And so I get excited about that when our country still chooses those things. So yeah, I agree 100%. This is a spiritual issue. There is a fight between good and evil, between God and Satan, however you want to call it. And that's what we're seeing. And so as a Christian, I need to realize that I need to fight it with spiritual weapons. And that means get on my flippin' knees and pray and pray and pray. And I just reminded of 2 Chronicles 4:7. God says, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves, do 3 things: pray and seek my face, and turn from whatever crap you're packing that's against me. He says, I will do 3 things. I will hear, I will forgive, and I will heal their land. And I think that's very interesting to another Christian. It's us. Do you realize the impact that you have because of your faith, the impact that you have on your country? That's some pretty deep stuff.
I guess I'll chime in as a non-Christian. We're walking and same values and want to see the same ends and want to see a better place. And there's room for us to walk together on this. And the thing I'm most committed to is making sure, though, that religious freedom is entrenched for every faith. You know, until a faith violates the rights of others, but that's a longer discussion. Yeah. But you know, many people feel spiritually driven in this, and that's what's motivating them, and it's great. I'll just say, admittedly, I don't feel that particular burning, but I feel the same pressure to take that path to make a better, moralistic world where we treat each other better and make a better future for our kids. So it's a great and interesting discussion to be had, and we just always got to watch to make sure that we don't make it sound like it's an exclusivity thing, though, or one particular faith or another. And it's not, but just got to make sure that caveat's always in there. But we're all on the same great path and heading to better things.
I'll give you my my personal conviction on this, but I need you to do me a favor. Do you got your phone handy? Look up the New International Version of Jeremiah 29:7 and read that if you don't mind.
New International Version, which translation, or which year of the NIV?
It doesn't matter.
You think not?
Jeremiah 29:7. He's got it. He's doing it, Max. He's got it. Yeah.
Okay.
You want to hear it? Yep.
Yeah, go ahead. You're probably faster.
Hang on, into the mic. Yeah.
But seek the welfare of the city where I have sent you into exile, and pray to the Lord on its behalf, for in its welfare you will find your welfare.
That verse, is there anyone in this room who kind of feels like they're a person of faith in exile in their own country with the direction the country's going? Many of us feel that way. That verse is saying that even though we're in a place that isn't aligned with our values and principles and what we believe, and we feel like maybe the enemy is winning, our job is to contribute to the prosperity and the welfare of the place that we're at. That means that we be involved. That's how we do this. We stay involved with these conversations, we participate, we share our opinions, and we contribute to the welfare of the city in which we've been sent into exile. Not rail against it and condemn people, but participate and pray for better outcomes. So as a Christian, I'm actually commanded to participate in this conversation. And if I don't do that, what a hypocrite I would be.
Very good. So maybe I should have given a little bit more explanation. So Canada's 4 founding fathers, 3 were strong Christians. They were all Presbyterians, 3 of them. And they set up Canada's government according to Christian, how do I say it? A Christian understanding of the proper form of government. They got it from Scotland, the Presbyterian system. It is that very system that is being taken apart and has been taken apart ever since 1968. In other words, what's happening to Canada is, in my opinion, and I wanted to hear what you thought, is the intentional destruction of the foundation of the nation, which was built on Christian principles. And I wondered if you had considered that, or what your thoughts are.
I agree 100%. And if anybody wants to dig into that and get a little bit of perspective on it, pick up a book called The Christians by Ted Byfield. Ted's kind of political thesis was, this isn't a right or a left thing. This is we're straying from the foundational moral principles, the Christian values that allowed us to have freedom in the first place, because God is a God of distinction and free will. He allows us freedom to do things, and that's kind of why the West is free. We're built on those values. He describes it as not so much as a political thing, but a spiritual thing. When a society abandons the morals and the principles that made the society possible in the first place, it changes, and I believe we're changing. So I agree with you on that front.
Question. I've heard anywhere from 25 billion to 75 billion Alberta sends east every year. Do you know a number?
Well,
transfer payments or whatever they call them?
It varies year to year, but it's in the neighborhood of $17 to $27 billion. It's been increasing since 2012, I believe, but it's somewhere in that neighborhood. Now, I do want to point out quickly, for those that are watching, there are people that have been commenting on our videos saying, oh, you don't understand this. What about your health transfers? What about this? You just pay taxes. When we say $17 to $27 billion, what we're saying is, after all the accounting is done, the difference between what is collected within Alberta by Ottawa, because Ottawa collects it, we don't, what goes to Ottawa, and what comes back in money and services is a net output between $17 and $27 billion. That's kind of how the ledger balances out. And it's not all equalization, it's not all this. We talk about equalization lots because kind of, as an Albertan, I consider everything that goes out is supporting other things within Canada, not to the benefit of Albertans. And that's 17 to 27 billion. Imagine what we could do with that. The Premier, she did a little press release or Facebook live stream or something like that, and she said, Alberta independence could cost us $400 billion and up to $70 billion per year. So, of course, I wrote a trifold rebuttal, which you're welcome to grab at the back. But she never breaks that down. She never talks about the net output and some of the things that we could do better, some of the things that would be cheaper. And that's why it's important to look at the net, not just we received this in a health transfer, which is our money anyway, by the way. You have to look at both sides of the ledger to see what's really going on.
Alberta looks after its own health care and EI and all that kind of stuff, as far as I know, like unemployment and your health system and all that.
We have the responsibility for it, and unfortunately our system is sort of integrated. Like our health transfer from the federal government is about $7 billion a year, which makes up 20% of our healthcare spending. We're stuck with the administration of it, and we're stuck under the Canada Health Act with how we administer it. And the federal government originally was supposed to pay for 50% of it. It's down to 20%, and they still tell us how to run it. But getting to that cost in general, there's costs we assume, costs we don't, some things that are covered federally. The most simple analogy, though, and just talking when you talk to other people, because you get the economists, oh, you don't understand equalization, we don't pay it out, we just don't receive it. Think of it like a little goldfish bowl where you put 1,000 jelly beans into, and then somebody picks out 700 of them and gives them back to you through services and money, and they just do whatever they want with the other 300. That's what's happening in Canada right now, because they use that analogy. They say, well, you pay the same income tax if you make $70,000 a year in Calgary as if you made $70,000 a year in Toronto. And that's true. But in Toronto, you get all of those jelly beans back, plus some on top, because you get equalization. In Alberta, we pay the same tax, but we get less back. And as Chris was saying, there's a lot of interpretations. Get 10 economists in a room, you'll get 10 different opinions. That's why the number is kind of 17 billion to 27 billion that we're taking as a net loss every year. But no economist can pretend that we aren't taking a net loss in tens of billions of dollars all the time. And it's a very serious issue.
Speaking of economists, the main economists that I cite in some of the information that we produce at Let's Talk Alberta, specifically the stuff to do with equalization and our net output, is actually an economist from Calgary who is anti-independence and pro-federalist. I actually use someone who doesn't agree with me on everything else, and even his numbers support the figures that we present at Let's Talk Alberta events. That's Trevor Tone.
I'm going to take this a little different way. I'd like to see a show of hands amongst the people here who any of you have attended or received an invitation to a counter group of speakers, and I'm going to pick up Forever Canada because everybody knows that name, it's well known, who have ever been asked and gone out where they've had a group of speakers like these, where they could ask these at the top. If you want to have a democracy, and there's going to be a vote, when people come to cast their ballot, no matter how many down, we are going to have the best decision for Alberta if those people are educated, if those people are making that choice from a position of asking questions, of being involved, and without it, we don't have democracy. And with the apathy and this to slip, we have a large contingency of people that are going to the vote in October and have gone to the polls repeatedly in the last few years from just a position of emotion, of trust my neighbor said Joe's a good guy, of they haven't taken the time. That's what we've got to teach people to do. We've got to teach them to come out and listen to gentlemen like these, and we've got to beg people like the Forever Canada to put these same kinds of things on so that people can learn from every direction. We get a good answer. And you know, I've watched this. My father back in the 70s, he said this country's in trouble if we don't change. My gosh, the man was right, and I was a teenager, and I didn't listen as well as I should have. So please, if you hear of a place where they're having speakers, where they're offering this kind of choice, there's a pile of information back there. I'm not going to tell you that it's all wonderful, and I'm not going to tell you that it's the thing that you need to do. I'm going to tell you, take it, read it, study it, research it. And when you've done that, embrace the things that are good. Ask the questions at these events. Get out to them and bring your questions to the mic, because that's how we're going to fix our province, and God help us, we can fix our country.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a very interesting. You're showing your age, ma'am, because you know our generation was taught to think for ourselves, and we're seeing a generation, like Chris said, this is all across society. This is part of the decline of our society. Is it's way easier to just sit back and get your thumbs moving on that little thing in front of you that tells you everything, because it tells you everything. You do not have to make up your own mind. You do not have to research it. You just find someone who can tell you what to do, and that is why we are in this position that we are. And that has to change, I understand.
Ben, now that you're speaking, you're rocking the stage, but everybody who's seeing this on the live streams, where can they find your music?
Can you find my music? Oh, yeah, well, go to Spotify, go to wherever you find it, just type in my name, Ben Crane, and then any of the titles of the songs that I do, you'll recognize them. My Alberta Roots Run Deep, Big Dreams, Something's Gotta Change.
Cattle Call.
Cattle Call. Thank you very much for asking.
I've got a question here from the audience.
Yeah. This is from a man who has recently moved here from Britain in the last year. He says, in the UK, a huge mistake was made in the Brexit referendum. Those who promoted Brexit were excluded from the negotiations. Instead, it was the existing politicians and civil service that took charge, with the well-known results. What plans are in place to ensure that the same thing doesn't happen here?
Well, my first thought when I hear that is, folks, we've got to listen to folks who have been there and done that. I don't know how many times I could count where I've heard people come out, you know, even folks from communist countries saying, I see what's happening here, and it's bad. That's what happened to us. That's why I left, and they're coming here. And so I appreciate you, sir, for saying that. That's my opinion, is we've got to get off our butts and listen. There's a saying in the owner's manual. It says, be quick to listen and slow to speak. Let's do that.
From what I gathered with Brexit, my interpretation and watching, what happened was the people got up and they took the steering wheel and they took it away from the establishment and the elites, and they steered it towards the right vote. But then the day after, they took their hands off and gave it back to the establishment and said, take it from here. And of course, they steered it right back into the lane they just pulled out of. What we have to do is remember, the day after a winning vote, our work is just beginning. It's not ending. And we need a transition plan. Keith Wilson and some others are working on that, actually, with committees and others, to make sure that this is not left in the hands of the government who we've just worked our way away from. And it comes back a bit to what we were talking about, and being involved in the party, being involved from the inside, putting that pressure on the decision makers so they have to respond to the mandate. But if we take our hands off the wheel, they'll happily grab it and put us right back where we were. So we should learn from that, and just remember, party it up for one night, sleep off one day of hangover, but then you're right back to work afterwards because it's not done.
We're almost done tonight, but I hate to put you on the spot, Jasper, but do you want to maybe just give a quick blurb on what you saw? Because you're a lot closer to that than we were here in Canada, and you have a very good insight on the Brexit thing.
Yeah, for the people who don't know me, I'm Jasper. I'm a journalist from Holland. I work for Common Sense TV, and England is across, so we've got the North Sea in between. What happened in England, the politicians in there didn't thought the whole referendum was a thing. So they happily made that referendum come in, and people showed up because within the European, it's basically power grab. So the majority voted, we want to go out of the European Union. It was quite easy. They still had the pound and then didn't pay with the euro. So after the Brexit was done, it was a slap in the face by the politicians. But the European Union is really, really strong, and it's like authoritarian. And what I think is what England should done is a hard Brexit. And every agreement, basically it's like a marriage, you have to have a divorce. But a divorce means separate all kinds of things, and that's it. No cuddling anymore. And within the European Union, what happened is that they still wanted to negotiate about several stuff. Like if you travel from the UK to the European Union. And what the European Union did, for example, was saying, okay, we're going to put up the English on a different line at the border, and we're just going to make it hard, just for the people to travel, just for hauling and for transporting stuff. It's just a different line, and we're not going to put up so many people, and the line is going to be longer than the European lines for the Europeans. And for the European stuff and the European trains in the tunnels that go over. And then the people were staying in line, waiting to get over the border, and you see the Europeans going quick in there, and they were complaining to the government, well, what's going on? And the government was saying, okay, we will take care of you. We're going to do some agreements and some policies. And that was the soft Brexit. Instead of stopping, getting a divorce, and if England wanted to make another agreement, go over there and negotiate. But there were still lines in there, and there were still some merits in there. So what I'm suggesting is it's a hard breakup. So no, just say no. We're getting out of here. That's it. And exactly, joint bank accounts. Stop doing that, and make sure it's like a hard Brexit, like a hard separation from Canada, from Ottawa. And if you want to make agreements, that's fine. And eventually, people from Ottawa want to come here and having a holiday. So what do we want to do? It's the same kind of arrangement. So make sure it's going to be a hard breakup. That's what I'm saying.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Rachel. I'm raising the 5th generation on the family ranch, and my ancestors originally from Prince Edward Island. Long line of entrepreneurs. Thanks for the opportunity here tonight. I've heard some really interesting points. I've heard some grievances. I've heard some nostalgia. I've also heard some economic and some political concerns. And that last question was a really great segue to my concern is we've heard the grievances, but I haven't really heard where the destination takes us. I would love some elaboration on what the structure would look like for an independent Alberta who is running the government systems, the bureaucracy, those programs that we all depend on for our really great quality of life now. I like action. I like to do things, get something done. I'm always trying to think of what can I do? How can I get involved to change things? What are the problems we're trying to tackle? If some of those are political, are we more effective within the current political structure or the current political parties? Or is there a new political party that could be formed to tackle some of these issues? So do you have plans for forming a new party to run an independent Alberta, or to move us towards an independent Alberta? And will that be a federal party, or will that be a provincial party?
So for your first part of that question, that's actually one of my favorite questions. It's what happens next, where are we going, what is the solution, and why is the solution relevant to our grievances now? At the core of this conversation is that Albertans, for the first time in history, will have the opportunity to make their own mistakes. And I say that to acknowledge that it may not all be rosy. I mean, we could make a legislative mistake and then we have to fix it. The problem is right now, a lot of the services and things that you describe, we actually can't influence the way they operate. For instance, the CFIA. There's a lot of people that are very upset with some of the ways some of the things the CFIA does. If your chicken sneezes, they wipe out 100,000 birds, those kinds of things. And I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it's just an example of something we can't control. Well, for the first time in Alberta's history, actually in Canadian history for Western Canada, we could decide what those laws look like. And therefore, when we decide what the law looks like, if the result is great, we benefit. If the result is bad, we can go back and change it. That's what it is. Okay, so who is making the decision for us is the question. In an independent Alberta, there's a few things that would have to happen. And like Cory says, nothing happens overnight. Let's say we have a binding referendum on independence and it's wildly successful and Alberta votes to become independent. Nothing happens the next day. The thing that starts happening is Albertans become involved in a new conversation. And the new conversation is, what is our future going to look like? What is our government going to look like? What is our system of laws? What type of constitution are we going to have? And then we hold constitutional conventions. These are things that have happened all over the world. The United States just celebrated their 250th year of their Declaration of Independence, in which the people decided what their governance was going to look like. That's what Alberta would do. What kind of government are we going to have? That would be the first thing. Once we agree what kind of government we're going to have, enshrine that in our constitution, we hold a general election. In the general election, we vote for whatever politician wants our votes by, aligning with their values, kind of thing. But the overarching concept is self-determination. We decide. And for the first time in Canadian history, the people decide how they're going to be governed. Canadians have never, ever done that.
Please get a microphone, please. Microphone.
The timeline is independence, constitutional convention, elections. That's how that goes. That's the timeline. But what I'm saying is the overarching thing is that for the first time in Canadian history, it's the people that decide how they're going to be governed. Canada doesn't exist like that. We are not like the United States with the by the people, for the people constitution. Our constitution that we have right now is a revamp of the British North America Act that was legislated, that was passed in the British legislature and imposed on the Dominion of Canada under the monarchy. So it wasn't the people. It was those who wish to govern us told us how they're going to govern.
So who will structure this convention?
Well, it's an administrative question. It would be groups just like this going all over Alberta, talking to people and getting their ideas. The beautiful part about this is, because it's 2026, we have a ton of history to look at. We have a number of constitutions that have been successful, a number that have been not successful, and if we take the time to learn and find out how these constitutions served their people, we're starting with 2,000 years of history at our disposal, right? And so when we decide what our Constitution is going to look like, we could, for example, look at the American Constitution, what worked, what caused problems, what really didn't work. And then we talk about these things. And then we hold, it would be how would that work, Cory? Like a popular vote to enshrine the Constitution?
There's a few ways. It could go to referendum. This is a big rabbit hole, and it's a good one. Keith Wilson's actually a better one to talk to because he's doing the white papers on this sort of thing in a transitional council. As for who would run this, the most common theory at this point would be it wouldn't just be the government in power at the time that's going to manage this. This is going to be a constitutional convention involving community leaders, academics, a great number of people getting involved in these discussions and getting together to form what would be a potential new draft constitution. Your question has a bunch of parts in it. In the time leading up to them, political party-wise, my view on that one is that it's probably not a good time to try and start a new provincial party, but to really try and take a very strong control of the existing provincial party in power. Some people have a different view on that. As far as a federal party goes, I wouldn't mind seeing another Reform stand up just so we could have a proper voice in Ottawa for a little while, but assuming we become independent, that party would immediately, well, once the Constitution is enshrined, that party wouldn't exist any longer because we don't have that level of government. We would now become independent. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack for a late question.
This sounds like a lot of work. I'm just trying
to
be
a lot of work.
Pragmatic. So if there are certain grievances that many of us can agree upon, is there a more time-effective approach to deal with some of those? Do we need to work within the political systems that we have now, or form subcommittees, or I don't know, is there a more effective way than dismantling an entire system of government? And
well, it's not so much dismantling an entire system of government, it's just us deciding what our system of government would look like. Now, and yes, absolutely, it's a lot of work.
So maybe I can...
When I say us, I'm referring to Albertans as a collective group of people.
I can elaborate maybe a bit of that. If you all over the world are things that you can pick up. In Swiss, there's their democracy contains 4 times a referendum question. So they've got an app and a voting station, and 4 times a year they've got several questions in there. And you can vote. Every citizen can go in that app or go to the voting station and have their saying in that. So maybe that's a thing.
And remember, too, that nothing that is really effective is going to happen fast. That's part of our... I love to see something happen right now. I agree with you and I understand, but at the same time, I also realize that good things take time. But just to reiterate what Chris was saying, they would float idea. This is the idea. Is these people who are really smart at this and have been working on these white papers will float these things out to town halls like this. You show up and you say, yeah, I like that, I don't like that, I like... They take our opinion and they work it through that way. So you and I have a part to play in it that has never been happened before.
Okay, we need to round up. This is the last question for tonight.
Hi, Michael's my name. I'm from Lethbridge, just traveling back through Calgary to here, to home. My question is on polling. We have all these TPAs, these different groups. I'm hearing the idea that, maybe it's only 40% will vote. I guess I've worked a lot in market research and in campaigns in the corporate sector. Usually you start with a goal which might be 60%. And then you trace how you're going to get there, who the market is, who the votes are. I'm kind of concerned that we have a lot of these campaigns and there's trucks with flags and all this stuff, but is there an actual end strategy there? I mean, in the next provincial election, Calgary is the only thing that matters. It's the battleground. I mean, rural and regional Alberta will vote a certain way. Edmonton will be more, traditionally NDP. And in fact, rural and regional Alberta might end up sitting on their hands and we end up with another Rachel Notley thing. But my question really is there polling? Is there some sort of combining of the TPAs and everything, pooling behind the scenes, basically a strategy to ensure a 60% win?
So something that's really unique with this, we're in uncharted waters with having a referendum that's managed by a disparate group of over a dozen TPAs kind of taking on different bites and directions and so on. So it's led to being different than a political campaign where you've had an established party who already has their polling division and their strategists and their fundraising. So we got more of a shotgun approach coming. To be honest, we stalled out of the gates. the biggest organization here disappeared from the scene as soon as the referendum was called, and they're starting to get their stuff together, it sounds like, but they're not going to be obviously a primary campaign force in the next few months. As you said, signs and things like that don't change it. I'm hoping, again, if you look at Keith Wilson's group, it's been very well organized. They're getting some very well-experienced people together, and they've been releasing things very strategically and with timelines. So I believe we're going to see more of a structured campaign coming together, because we most certainly need one. We can't get them all together working together. That's the rules we're under. That would be called collusion, and we'll all get charged and fined. So it's a awkward way to make us work. We all have a maximum of $600,000 we can raise each, which is a lot of money, but when it's a campaign for a province of 5 million people, it's actually a drop in the bucket. In a full election campaign, a party's going to spend millions and millions of dollars. So these groups have to kind of take off a bite of this part of the campaign and that part of the campaign, and hope that one of them with the 600,000 can centralize things and do some of the sorts of things you're talking about. It's going to be difficult. There's no playbook, because nothing like this has ever quite happened before. So that's the best answer I can give at this time. I know it'd be great to have some in-depth polling, but it costs a fortune. Perhaps one of the other groups is doing it. I mean, mine doesn't. I have a different specialty. Media has been doing some polling. The Western Standard did. Rebel did a very large one with Main Street polling. That found some interesting things, with 46% of the Indigenous population supporting independence, but 26% of the non-Indigenous population supporting independence. And it was a very surprising outcome that we didn't expect coming through that. We'll see how things develop, but that's the best I got to give at this point.
I'm going to touch on that last question a little bit more, because I don't think we answered it quite enough. You asked about a political party, or if something else might be more effective. I do want to point out that Alberta has had this isn't a new conversation. The conversation itself has been happening for 50 years. This isn't anything new. A lot of different things have been tried within the current structure. The Reform Party was probably the biggest thing that tried to change the relationship, and it was, hey, the West wants in. We want a seat at the table. We want an elected Senate. We want to fix these inequities. And it was like a hard shutdown, no, and then a fear campaign to absorb that into another party that just maintained the status quo. So I would argue that Western Canada, specifically Alberta, has tried things for a long time. We have really tried. And we've tried to influence federal politics. It's evident over the last 3 elections that it just isn't a viable path. I don't believe in doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting different results. As Cory describes in his book, we've learned what hasn't worked, and we just moved on. We move on to different things that have an opportunity for success. Now, you mentioned political parties. I have an unpopular opinion that might be necessary. And why do I say that? Because right now we have a governing party that is actively campaigning against the idea of Alberta sovereignty. So we're already starting off from behind. Quebec, on the other hand, they do things much differently. They elect people who actually believe in Quebec sovereignty. And then those people do things like put a for sale sign on the lieutenant governor's front lawn of their house and say, we reject this. They send a courier, not an envoy, not a politician, no one. They send a courier to meet the king when he was here a little while ago with a letter that says, we reject the monarchy, everything to do with it, you're not our king. They exercise their sovereignty through a political party. I've started saying that it might become necessary that if Albertans really want self-determination, that they need the courage to make the changes necessary to get it. We may need the courage to elect people who will specifically advocate for that. The unfortunate thing is we've had like zero success with that since the late 90s. And Cory, in his book, he describes that. It's a really good read. If we haven't had any success in that, but that's not to say we couldn't have success in the future. We have to do things different. And if something like this, with the opportunity that's ahead of us, I think it's important to consider all of our options and understand that if we're not going to be courageous and do the things, sometimes the scary things, because we don't know exactly what's over that mountain, if we're not willing to have the courage for change, we won't get change. That's just the way it is. So I hope that answers your question well. I'm gonna meet with you. I'll talk to you and answer your question after, because we got to start wrapping up because we got to get out of the venue. And with that, I would like to say thank you very much. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for the people that are watching online asking questions. I think we caught most of them from your questions in the crowd here. And thanks for being willing to be part of the conversation. I understand that not everybody in this room shares my opinion that Alberta independence is necessary and inevitable. Happy to talk with you about it afterwards, or at any time for that matter. And for those of you watching at home, folks, please join us at our next meeting, which will be in Cowley.
Foremost.
No, Cowley.
Oh,
Cowley tomorrow
Cowley,
night.
yeah.
We'll be there. And hopefully the people in Cowley received their invitations in the mail, unlike the people of Nanton. Thank you very much.